Elena is the person everyone turns to when life falls apart. Her friends marvel at her patience. Her colleagues rely on her emotional intelligence, and her family counts on her steady presence during crises. She listens with her whole being, absorbing others' pain as if it were her own. She's built her identity around being the compassionate one, the healer, the rock. Yet lately, something feels off. At home, alone, Elena collapses into exhaustion. Small irritations, a neighbor's loud music, a friend's casual lateness, trigger waves of resentment that shock her with their intensity. She finds herself harshly judging her new coworker Jennifer for being self-centered and attention-seeking, with a venom that feels almost personal. At night, she lies awake wondering, how can someone who gives so much feel so hollow? Why does the kindest person in the room secretly harbor such judgment? This experience is not a personal failing or moral flaw. It's a symptom of ignoring one of the most profound psychological warnings ever articulated, a warning that comes from the legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Modern self-help culture, with its emphasis on positivity and light, has largely overlooked this critical insight. For empaths especially, those naturally attuned to others' emotional states, this warning isn't just important, it's urgent. What is this warning that could so dramatically affect your well-being, relationships, and sense of purpose? It's the danger of the unacknowledged shadow. This isn't some metaphysical monster or spiritual boogeyman. It's a fundamental aspect of the human psyche, the repository of everything we hide from ourselves in our quest to be good. And for the empath, whose identity is often built around being the light for others, this shadow grows particularly dense and potent. In the pages that follow, we'll explore what the shadow truly is, why empaths are uniquely vulnerable to its influence, and how confronting it offers the only path to authentic wholeness and sustainable compassion. This isn't just psychological theory. It's a roadmap to reclaiming the parts of yourself you've had to abandon along the way. Imagine you've been carrying an invisible backpack since childhood. Inside this backpack, you placed every part of yourself that seemed dangerous, unacceptable, or simply unwelcome in your environment. The rage you felt when you were hurt but told to be nice. The jealousy that burned when a sibling was favored. The ambition that was labeled as selfish. The vulnerability that was met with impatience. This is the shadow, the aspects of your psyche that you've disowned, repressed, or denied because they threatened your belonging, safety, or self-image. As Jung put it, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. What makes the shadow concept so often misunderstood is the assumption that it's inherently evil or negative. It's not. The shadow is neither good nor bad. It's unconscious energy. Think of it as a wild river of life force. When dammed up, this energy doesn't disappear. It accumulates pressure until it either bursts through in destructive ways, explosive anger, self-sabotage, addictive behaviors, or stagnates in a depression, chronic fatigue, or a pervasive sense of inauthenticity. However, when properly channeled, when we acknowledge and integrate this energy, it becomes an incredible source of vitality, creativity, and power. The very qualities that make us fully human and fully alive often reside in our shadow. The birth of the shadow begins early. A young boy cries after falling off his bike and hears, "Big boys don't cry." In that moment, his natural vulnerability becomes unacceptable. Rather than losing his father's approval, he pushes his tears and tender feelings into the shadow. A little girl shows righteous anger when her toys are taken and is told, "That's not how nice girls behave." Her healthy assertiveness gets banished to the shadow. A creative teenager in a family that values practical achievement learns to hide their artistic passions, pushing their creative expression into the shadow. With each such moment, the backpack grows heavier, filled with disowned parts of ourselves. We carry it everywhere, pretending it isn't there, but its weight affects everything we do. Perhaps most fascinating is what Jung called the golden shadow, the positive qualities we've also had to repress. The brilliant child labeled show-off learns to dim their light. The natural leader, told their bossy, suppresses their leadership abilities. The deeply intuitive person, told they're too sensitive, learns to doubt their profound insights. This is why we often feel such awe and fascination with certain people. They may be embodying qualities that live in our own golden shadow. The charismatic speaker who captivates you might be reflecting your own repressed power. The artist whose work moves you to tears might be channeling the creativity you've locked away. As Jung noted, what we admire in others is often a reflection of what we've denied in ourselves. For the empath, the shadow presents a unique and profound challenge. Here lies the central paradox. The very people most dedicated to bringing light, healing, and compassion to the world are often those most susceptible to developing a dense, powerful shadow. Why? Because empaths typically build their entire identity, what Jung called the persona, around being the good one, the helper, the healer, the emotional support. This identity isn't just a role they play. It becomes who they fundamentally believe themselves to be. The stronger and more rigid this conscious identity becomes, the more of their full humanity they must necessarily reject and repress. Maintain the self-image of being selfless. They must deny their healthy selfishness, their legitimate needs and desires. To uphold their reputation as being calm and peaceful, they must suppress their righteous anger and capacity for necessary conflict. To be the strong one others lean on, they must disown their own vulnerability, neediness, and desire to be held and supported. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, Jung warned. Yet the empath's entire worldview often revolves around imagining and embodying figures of light while denying the darkness within. This denial is further complicated by the empath's naturally porous emotional boundaries. Unlike others who can more easily compartmentalize, empaths feel the world's pain acutely and directly. This creates an intense aversion to causing any pain themselves. The thought of hurting someone else, even unintentionally, can be almost unbearable for the empath, leading them to suppress any internal impulse that feels aggressive, confrontational, or self-serving. These vital, life-preserving instincts get pushed deep into the shadow. The empath becomes a sponge for others' emotions, partly because they are terrified of their own raw, darker feelings. This creates a perfect storm for shadow formation. Let's look at how this manifests in 3 common empath archetypes. The people-pleaser empath presents a smiling face to the world. They're accommodating, agreeable, and readily available. Their conscious identity is built around being kind and non-confrontational. But their shadow holds immense, repressed rage and resentment from years of self-abandonment. This unexpressed anger doesn't disappear. It projects outward, causing them to harshly judge people who set boundaries as selfish or cold. Their unexpressed no doesn't evaporate. It transforms into chronic fatigue, mysterious illnesses, or passive-aggressive behaviors that leak out sideways. The rescuer/healer empath lives to help others overcome their struggles. Their identity is wrapped up in being needed. Their shadow, however, contains their own disowned neediness and yearning to be rescued. This repressed vulnerability doesn't vanish. It projects outward, unconsciously attracting a steady stream of broken partners or friends who need fixing. This dynamic allows them to maintain their helper identity while keeping their own vulnerability safely locked in the shadow. The peacemaker empath avoids conflict at all costs, priding themselves on maintaining harmony. Their conscious identity revolves around being the mediator, the one who soothes troubled waters. Their shadow, however, holds their disowned capacity for healthy confrontation and assertiveness. This repressed power doesn't disappear. It projects outward, causing them to view assertive people as aggressive or bullies when they're actually terrified of the power locked within their own shadow. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung observed. For empaths, this irritation often points directly to their most deeply repressed qualities. The cruel irony is this. The empath's noble quest to be a source of light inadvertently creates a denser, more volatile shadow, making them more susceptible to the very negativity they're trying to avoid. Their conscious dedication to helping others often comes at the unconscious expense of abandoning themselves. The shadow never stays hidden forever. Like water finding cracks in a dam, repressed psychic energy will always find ways to manifest in your conscious life. Learning to recognize these signals early can prevent the devastating floods that occur when the shadow erupts uncontrollably. Here are 5 warning signs that your shadow is actively influencing your life, especially if you're an empath. Sign 1. Intense emotional projections and triggers. When you experience an emotional reaction to someone that far exceeds what the situation warrants, you're likely encountering a projection of your shadow. This isn't just mild annoyance or disagreement. It's visceral, almost personal. Consider this scenario. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A reasonable response might be momentary frustration. But if you find yourself in a rage that lasts for hours, complete with elaborate fantasies about this stranger's moral character and what you wish you could say to them, you're experiencing a shadow projection. That intensity likely comes from your own repressed assertiveness or unexpressed anger in other areas of your life. Similarly, if you find yourself obsessively judging someone for being too self-centered or attention-seeking, ask yourself, what parts of healthy self-focus have I denied myself? What needs for recognition have I pushed into the shadow because they didn't fit my identity as the selfless supporter? The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort, Jung wrote. This effort begins with recognizing that your strongest judgments of others are signposts pointing toward your own disowned traits. Sign 2. Self-sabotage and destructive patterns. The shadow wants recognition. If you refuse to acknowledge it consciously, it will make itself known through your behavior. This often manifests as puzzling self-sabotage that contradicts your conscious intentions. You might procrastinate on the creative project you claim is your passion. You might pick fights with the partner you love deeply. You might accidentally overspend after committing to financial discipline. These aren't character flaws or lack of willpower. They're the shadow demanding attention. For empaths, this often looks like chronic overcommitment followed by resentful withdrawal, creating a cycle of extremes that leaves everyone confused, including themselves. Or it might manifest as an inexplicable attraction to people who violate the very values you consciously hold dear. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Jung warned. What patterns in your life seem to happen to you repeatedly, despite your best intentions to choose differently? Sign 3. Chronic burnout and unexplained ailments. The body keeps the score. The immense energy required to keep the shadow repressed is physically and emotionally depleting. This is especially true for empaths, who are already processing so much external emotional information. Chronic fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. Persistent anxiety that doesn't respond to relaxation techniques. Mysterious physical symptoms that doctors struggle to diagnose. Depression that seems to have no clear external cause. These can all be physical manifestations of the war being waged between your conscious identity and your shadow. For the empath, burnout isn't just from helping others. It's from the internal conflict of maintaining a one-sided self-image that rejects fundamental aspects of being human. The body eventually protests this division with symptoms that force rest and reflection. Sign 4. Attracting toxic people or scenarios. Jung understood that the outer world often mirrors the inner. If you continually attract people who exploit your kindness, who never reciprocate your generosity, or who seem to draw you into their dramas, your shadow may be at work. If you've disowned your capacity for healthy selfishness, you'll unconsciously attract people who embody excessive selfishness. If you've repressed your own anger, you may repeatedly find yourself in relationships with people who have anger management issues. These people aren't appearing randomly in your life. They're manifestations of your shadow, showing you the parts of yourself you've refused to acknowledge. For empaths, This often means becoming a narcissist magnet, repeatedly attracting individuals who seem to be their psychological opposite. In reality, these relationships often form because the empath has disowned their own healthy narcissism, self-focus, and self-prioritization, while the narcissist has disowned their vulnerability and emotional sensitivity. Sign 5. A pervasive feeling of inauthenticity or imposter syndrome. Perhaps the most subtle but pervasive sign of shadow issues is a persistent feeling that you're not being your true self, that you're performing or wearing a mask. This isn't just occasional social awkwardness. It's a deep, unsettling sense that you're living someone else's life or playing a role you've outgrown. When you've disowned significant parts of your authentic self, you can't show up as a whole person. You feel like an imposter because, in a very real sense, you're only presenting a carefully curated version of yourself to the world, while keeping the rest locked away. For empaths, who are often highly attuned to incongruence, this feeling can be particularly painful. You sense the mismatch between your inner reality and outer presentation, yet the fear of disappointing others by changing your established role can keep you trapped in this inauthentic position. Shadow work isn't about battling or eliminating your shadow. It's about reclamation, a courageous act of retrieving the lost parts of yourself and reintegrating their energy into your conscious personality. The goal isn't to judge or destroy, but to listen, understand, and integrate. Think of it as reuniting with a long-lost sibling who has been locked in the basement. This reunion requires compassion, not condemnation. The shadow's seemingly destructive manifestations are often desperate attempts to be acknowledged after years of rejection. With conscious attention, this raw energy can be transformed from a sabotaging force into a source of authentic power and creativity. Step 1. The art of observation. Become a projection detective. Begin by paying radical attention to your emotional triggers. When you feel that jolt of intense judgment, righteousness, or attraction toward someone, pause. This is your opportunity to learn about yourself through the mirror of others. Ask yourself, what specific trait in this person is bothering me or fascinating me so much? Where in my own life might I express a version of this trait, perhaps in more subtle or socially acceptable ways? How might a healthy version of this trait actually serve me in my life? For example, if you find yourself harshly judging someone for being selfish, ask where you might benefit from more healthy self-focus. If you're fascinated by someone's charisma, ask what aspects of your own personal power you might have disowned. This practice isn't about self-blame. It's about self-discovery. Each projection is a clue leading you back to wholeness. Step 2. The journaling practice. Dialogue with the shadow writing is one of the most powerful tools for accessing the unconscious. Create a regular practice of journaling with these specific prompts. Dear Shadow, what are you trying to tell me when I feel this resentment toward my friend? What parts of myself did I have to hide away to be loved as a child? If my anger could speak freely, what would it say right now? Write a letter from the perspective of the part of you that is jealous/angry/afraid. Let it speak without censorship. List 5 people you deeply admire. What qualities do they embody? How can I begin expressing one of these qualities this week? This practice creates a bridge between your conscious mind and the shadow, allowing communication to flow where there was once only repression. Step 3. Dream analysis. The royal road to the unconscious dreams speak the language of the shadow. The strange, dark, or powerful figures that appear in your dreams are often personifications of your own disowned qualities. The threatening stranger in your nightmare might represent your repressed anger. The captivating person you can't reach might embody your golden shadow. Keep a simple dream journal. Upon waking, record whatever you remember without analysis. Then ask, if every character in this dream is a part of me, what is each one representing? You don't need to become an expert analyst. Simply remain curious about the messages your unconscious is sending. Step 4. Conscious integration. Embodying the energy inside alone isn't enough. The final step is finding healthy, conscious channels for expressing the shadow's energy in your daily life. If you've repressed anger, consider taking up a martial art or setting a firm boundary with someone who has taken advantage of your kindness. If you've disowned your creativity, sign up for an art class you've been eyeing. If you've denied your ambition, allow yourself to pursue that promotion or project you secretly desire. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about giving voice and form to the energies that have been locked away, allowing them to mature from their primitive, repressed state into conscious, constructive expressions. For empaths, especially, this might mean embracing the revolutionary act of putting yourself first sometimes. It might mean allowing yourself to feel and express anger without guilt. It might mean recognizing that your needs are just as valid as everyone else's. That true compassion includes self-compassion.